4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He flies off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. It might pop wide open, Rats. Get this there! Is that there, Rats? Nice going, baby. Yes, sir, Rats.
Hello and happy Wednesday, and welcome to this edition of the Wild Wild West podcast. I am Richie Richey of MHRT Network, and you may see a new face directly below me here. This is OG Daniel of Chronicles of the Black Hole. Daniel, how you doing today?
Doing good, brother. Long time no see.
Fantastic. And joining us, as always, we have Coach Defense of Lockdown Defense Podcast. How are you today, Coach?
Good, sir. Boat up.
Full Pam. Let's ride.
and Alex with the we'll call it appropriate and apt mockery at this point of the Russell Wilson catchphrase, if you will. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Ready to talk a little AFC West with you guys, and excited for the content we got lined up.
Fantastic. And just a quick reminder for all of you that are joining us on Twitter. Twitter made some changes a little while ago now, actually, and for whatever reason, as a result of those changes, we are unable to see your comments live in the stream. So if you really want to get your comments heard, you want to start getting some questions over to our upcoming guest, it's at GenJag over there on YouTube with some Jaguars and Raiders questions. Please jump over to YouTube on any of the channels that we're streaming on and get those questions in. We would love to hear from you and would love to have you join us live over on YouTube. By the way, Facebook also allows comments to flow through here. So if that's your platform of choice, you can jump over there as well. So guys, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Our guest today is Jordan of GenJag. As you all know, Hall of Fame game coming up tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, between the Raiders and the Jags. And I believe they actually did like a walkthrough earlier today, if I remember reading everything online correctly. I'm gonna go ahead and bring in Jordan right now. If we could all give Jordan a round of applause. Jordan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, y'all. Appreciate the round of applause. That
awesome.
Might be the best intro I've had on a podcast yet. Love it.
We really aim for that grand entrance in here. Yes. And guys, just because of how fitting it is, fresh from a layover in Charlotte in the airport, we brought in Captain Jack, who wanted to join us very briefly today. Captain, thank you for coming in.
Yarg! And hopefully I won't have an announcement over the thing, which would really screw up all of the acoustics here, but that's just the way it is. So when I'm not talking, I'm going to mute the mic so you won't hear me, which a lot of people probably would prefer anyway.
That's not a bad thing.
So Jordan, first off, thank you for joining us today. This is awesome. We always enjoy having other teams' pods on the show. Super interesting stuff. You want to maybe just break down a little bit of kind of what you do and perhaps give us some of your more recent takes and some of the new news surrounding the Jaguars to maybe kick us off?
Sure. So Jordan DeLugo, I cover the Jaguars for Generation Jaguar. Started the company in 2015 just as an outlet to write about the Jags, obviously, and slowly kind of built the brand. Now I'm able to go out, official media, cover the practices, having a good time out there, a hot time down here in Florida, as you might imagine, but a good time nonetheless. Jaguars have had 8 practices so far throughout training camp, only 2 fully padded practices, which is a little bit of a concern, in my opinion, going into, preseason week 0, I guess you could call it, for the Hall of Fame game, having only 2 padded practices prior to playing a game. We'll see if it ends up being a competitive disadvantage for the Jaguars or advantage for the Raiders. But takes, I mean, where do we begin? There's a lot different here in Jacksonville than there was just about 12 months ago when you look at the power structure, coaching staff,
no Urban Meyer
talent. There's a lot going on. So I think the biggest thing you can take away is Trevor Lawrence finally has a quarterback coach, a head coach that is going to, at least at the very bare minimum, be a professional and handle himself as such. And, he's a guy that's won the Super Bowl. He's done a lot of different things with different quarterbacks throughout his time in the league, and a former quarterback himself. He knows what it takes to be a quarterback in this league, and he knows how to get the most out of his quarterback. So at the very least, I think Jaguars fans can take solace in the fact that you have Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson coaching him up.
Who is a Reed disciple, should I add.
Absolutely.
To get that
had some good years there in Kansas City, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So when you start looking ahead, you mentioned concerns actually about the lack of padded practice. Is there not also a flip side to that with regards to some of the injuries? The Broncos have recently had a pretty big one with Tim Patrick in the ACL. Not that the pads are necessarily a full culprit in that sort of thing, but certainly adding extra weight, putting, with all the extra training regimens that all these players are on, certainly more so when you talk about, say current NFL than, way back in the day, where, you didn't hear these ACL tears as often. Are you not maybe looking at that as a positive as well, where you're maybe saving some injuries because they're not going to necessarily be as aggressive?
It could be, certainly. Having only 2 padded practices, the Jaguars haven't suffered any major injuries yet in training camp. Of course, they're hoping to avoid that. But you look back at OTAs when it was unpadded and you had Jordan Smith, the second-year defensive end / outside linebacker, go down with a season-ending knee injury. CJ Beathard, the second-string quarterback, suffers a groin injury in OTAs when, it's non-padded. So I just think it's really difficult to predict when and how injuries will take place, whether you have pads on, whether you don't have pads on. It's tough to predict.
No, I think I guess that's fair. It's just, I always look at these situations kind of from both sides. And I think that where there's a positive, there's also a negative, and vice versa. So I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, pads are going to give you that close to game, or as close as you're going to get in a practice, to kind of game style reps. But then on the flip side of that, sometimes you also end up with, we'll call it the extracurriculars, similar to those that we've seen come out of the Saints, for example, in some of those videos where, things kind of get taken maybe a little too far. And I mean, some of those could lead to injuries, right? If you're pushing a guy over on his ankle and things like that, like you can really start to hurt and hinder your team before you get going.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't think Doug Peterson or any of the coaches on staff have at least publicly expressed any concern about having only 2 fully padded practices leading up to this. I think they feel good about it. So if the coaches feel all right about it, I think probably it's not too big of a deal. But I am interested to see, like, if the Jaguars come out and they're sharp with their tackling or not, because you haven't had really any time to work on that. Obviously, you've been able to work on your form. You're practicing it without going fully to the ground and going all the way through the tackle, but it'll be interesting to me. And of course, it's not a game where, the results matter outside of avoiding injuries and just trying to show some development here. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of competitive advantage or disadvantage for either team, I think. And mentioning the extracurriculars.
Yes.
I would say that has been more prevalent at Jaguars camp since the pads have come on. So I think you're absolutely right there.
Yeah. OG, I wanted to throw over to you as the the non-muted Raiders personality here on screen. This is a rare opportunity for all the folks that follow both you and Captain Jack to have access to start getting some information on your upcoming opponent, and really kind of getting a feel in terms of what you may expect from this game. Wanted to have a couple questions you might have on the Jaguars front, if you wanted to go ahead and throw them over to Jordan while he's with us.
Okay, well, I know you guys spent a lot of money this year.
Sure did.
And
it's the most money a team's ever spent in an NFL offseason.
On Christian Kirk.
But okay, so you guys handing out bag. But the thing is, I mean, from this upcoming game, what are we going to get? One series of starters, maybe, and then it's just evaluating the guys who are auditioning. Okay, so we're looking for, there's gonna be injuries. I mean, that happens in preseason. I don't know if it'll be this game, but it happens. Right. And a lot of basically, this is these other guys' chance to get on the team, get seen, get evaluated, and you're gonna see guys that are gonna be ballers unexpectedly, and you're gonna see guys that are gonna be like, why has this guy ever seen a football before? This happens in preseason. What do you think you guys have done best in upgrading offense or defense on your team?
That's a great question, because they've done a lot of upgrading, or they've at least attempted to do a lot of upgrading in a lot of different areas. I think perhaps the biggest upgrade is just addition by subtraction of not having Urban Meyer in the building anymore. And I know that comes off as funny, snarky, whatever, but I'm dead serious. I think
he had to go.
I think it was one of the worst situations. Maybe it is the worst situation I've ever seen. And following it up close and personal, being there, it was clear pretty early on that was a horrible situation. But we don't need to dwell on the past. What have they done best from a roster perspective, in my opinion? They're in the AFC South, right? So you got Derrick Henry, you got Jonathan Taylor. I think the Texans are going to try to run the ball as well with Dameon Pierce, Rex Burkhead. They brought over Marlon Mack as well. You want to kind of run the ball and not put it all on Davis Mills' shoulders this year. So I think, honestly, I don't know if this was a point of emphasis going into the offseason. Like they were like, we have to get our run defense squared away, or if it just kind of happened that way. They haven't said that, we're in the AFC South, we have to stop the run. But it looks like that's what they tried to do by going out and getting Foley Fatukasi from the Jets, who's a big-time run defender. They brought in Foye Oluokun, leading tackler in the NFL, right? Devin Lloyd, first-round pick, linebacker out of Utah, tackling machine. Then they even went in the third round and brought in Chad Muma out of Wyoming, another big-time tackler. It looks like they have geared up to stop the run on defense, and I think they're going to be able to do that pretty well. I would say that defense really struggled to stop the run last year. It should not in 2022.
Okay.
Interesting.
But yeah, they brought in Christian Kirk. Obviously, y'all know Zay Jones. They brought in Evan Ingram, who I think is probably the biggest X factor. I think he's going to be up and down all year. That's what we've seen throughout camp so far and what you've seen throughout his career. So I think you'll have some big performances out of the Jags offense, maybe some that, leave you desiring a little bit more when it comes to consistency from the receivers dropping the football. I mean, Evan Ingram has had highs and lows throughout camp, throughout his career. I think Zay has done so as well. Christian Kirk should be fairly reliable. Marvin Jones should be fairly reliable. But overall, I still think it's an underwhelming group of offensive weapons at receiver. Now, getting Travis Etienne into the backfield, who will not play on Thursday night, he's being held out. And Trevor Lawrence is being held out as well, in case anybody was not aware of that. So you're not going to get to see two of the biggest stars there. But I do think Etienne and James Robinson, that combination, once you get into the regular season, is going to be a nice duo out of the backfield as well.
I like it.
Yeah, Etienne, I took him last year, and then that first, right this league always tries to draft before the end of preseason, and every year I complain about it. Then I take ETN, 4th round, real excited, 4th or 5th, and then boom, breaks his foot.
Yeah, you gotta